Hey everyone, today we're going to talk to Hinesh Chauhan. It was kind of a coincidence, but anyway, somebody introduced me to somebody, and then that somebody introduced me to Hinesh, and I'm like, oh, we have a lot of things in common. But how the universe works, right? Anyway, Hinesh is a helps small and medium businesses both in US and Canada, especially since COVID, to for them to navigate essentially the government rules and all that stuff. Also help them, be in front of those legislators or whoever can help them, right? That's one. But he also has a coaching program. I mean, he also coaches, helps people there, but he also has a separate coaching program on recently divorced or divorced dads to, I guess, to navigate their new life, right? So, Hinesh, I'll let you go a bit more in depth than what I said. So, what you used to do to what do you do now?
Yes, thank you. My career started in the military. I was a combat engineer and then commissioned from the ranks to an Army engineer officer, which had me do a variety of roles. And then I moved into the public service. I was an executive in the public service, overseeing high value, high risk initiatives in Canada, it was our Treasury Board Secretariat, the equivalent to your budget management office. So identifying any risks to taxpayer, whether it was risk to reputation, health and safety, crown, and getting them sound decision making and being able to pull together the pieces of legislation policy to get the result. There's an end state we need to get to. What's the puzzle that needs to be solved to get there? And then I did various other initiatives dealing with life cycle asset management of portfolios of real estate assets for organizations. So we think bridges, dams, Coast Guard bases, lighthouses, search and rescue stations, and run rehabilitation projects, recapitalization, new facilities. And I ran Canada's infrastructure stimulus program. So got a really broad understanding of the intricacies and understanding in detail the machinery of government, where everything is siloed. I was successful in what I did by understanding all the stakeholders in industry within government to bring people together to get where we had to go. Then I went into the consulting world to a boutique real property firm to essentially what I was hoping to do is get more value for money, where in government, you're not looking at profits. What I prided myself on was really getting results and getting value for money for Canadians. But after COVID and during COVID, what really jumped out to me was that we're not making evidence-based decisions. And the recommendations I was putting up to elected officials were not getting chosen. And so I began to follow the money. Why are these decisions being made? And realize that there's not an objective lens being used to make these decisions. They're highly influenced by industry and by large organizations.
Mm.
And when I started realizing the impact to society during COVID was really the segregation, separation of communities. We in Canada, where we have a very harsh climate, we're in our homes and separated from our neighbors. We don't have that village. And as a parent, as a single parent,
Mhm.
there's pressure for a high demanding job. I have to run a household and make sure my kids are being parented and being developed to be successful. And when I looked at the world and what was happening and all the rise in mental illness, physical illness, and what the contributing factors were. In my meta-analysis, it came down to a single thing, more connection. So
Mhm.
if you hear me speak on other platforms or in public, I'm always talking about connection, community, and collaboration because that is healing. It reduces incidence rates of addiction, of suicide rates. I lost my brother to suicide 4 years ago, which coincided with all this.
Mhm.
And that community, we don't have communities where you can rely on others to help you out. We're all isolated and siloed again in the way we live lives. So, how do you nurture that?
Mhm.
I began looking at best practices around the world where after my brother committed suicide, he was in the military as well. I was invited to speak in front of a parliamentary committee to talk about what could be done because of my roles in the military and the government, I knew the machine intimately
Mm.
and was able to provide recommendations. Again, they went nowhere. So realizing our government was failing us at our most basic needs in terms of healthcare, in terms of really having our best interests in mind. And when I think that one of the straws that broke the camel's back was realizing that we lack housing. It was predictable, it was foreseeable, and thought that that's absolutely criminal. When you're lacking the most basic needs, something else needs to be done.
Mm.
And so when I took a step back and realized what matters to me, why I care so much, and realizing, holy crap, I've got the skills to be able to help resolve this. And the people, nonprofit, small, medium businesses, organizations that were impacted the strongest during COVID are the ones that are suffering, but also are the ones that spur innovation and provide these solutions. But they may lack either the resources, the know how, or the understanding of the full environment. So that's my purpose is that I help organizations get those results in a simplistic way, unlike the big four. Because
Mm.
looking at what the alternative is overly complex, overly expensive, and they just want to stretch out their engagements
Mm.
while also taking advantage of their associates or junior associates, and which is really, I think, is abusive. So it can be done for much less. So I've worked tirelessly to vet organizations and service providers and software solutions so I can refer my clients to get the results and support they need without wasting time and know that they're being connected with people of integrity or companies of integrity. And
Gotcha.
then on the divorce side,
Mhm.
through my experience of going through it, how to make the best of it, looking at the resources out there, the resources are lacking.
Mhm.
Resources for men in general are lacking, and the statistics behind the challenges men face are staggering. The increased rate of increased rate of addiction, homelessness, the things we don't talk about. We talk about all the male CEOs and the male high profile opportunities or positions where women aren't filling those roles. It's because it's a factor of risk, but we don't talk about the opposite end of the spectrum of homelessness. And so when I looked at this and looked at, I took a step back after quitting my career. So public sector, I went to the consulting firm, and then I took a month to just not accept any contracts, just sit back and say, what's important to me? What are the problems? And took a deep dive and realized, okay, first thing I'm going to do is create something because there are lack of resources. The resources for men generally talk about bravado, about meeting women. No one's talking about healthy co-parenting, about just living your best life, improving yourself, making the best decisions for the long term for your kids. So that's why I focus on healthy co-parenting and creating better long-term outcomes for your kids to ultimately raise. If you ask my kids this, they'll tell you, like, what's your dad's mission with you guys? It's to raise resourceful, resilient, empathetic, critical thinkers. That's my role so that they can be self-sustaining and successful in their life. And that's what drives me, is creating a better scenario and environment for all families and kids
Mhm.
in the short term, and helping organizations that are working to create that change that we need.
Mm. Gotcha. Well, let's get into first what you do to help the small and mid-sized businesses, right? Seems like based on what you're saying, you always seem to have set of principles, seems like you operate on.
Yes.
What is those set of principles that you essentially share with these businesses so that they can, I guess, put out their concerns and issues in front of the government? That's what essentially the legislature or whatever, to form a proper, I guess, aligned group to present those, right? Because you can't have each business doing, their own thing. You want to
Right.
align those. So how do you, one is what are those principles and how do you align the businesses you bring in to those principles?
I think it all comes down to risk management and in running a 9-figure annual budget and national teams, what I realized, or in a world where, say, capital budgets were in the government had an acceptable variance rate of 20% per year. I consistently over my career was under 0.5%. I don't think I even touched 0.5%. So 20% versus 0.5%. And it came down to risk management and leadership practices. And everything's risk management. When you walk out the door of your house, before you cross the road, you look left and right. That's risk management. And then change management of left foot, right foot, avoid the pothole, risk management. How do you do that? And so when I work with clients, the very first thing I do is, what are you doing? And financials tell me a story. I'm a very quantitative. My background in engineering and economics, I can't help myself. So it's looking at what is holding them up, what are they not doing right, or what could be optimized. So looking at that and then immediately identifying that and establishing solutions to create a healthy baseline. And then from there, it's like, where are you trying to go? And for the solopreneur or a small business owner, it's about immediately time freedom and increased revenue. And everyone else increased revenue. And when I deal with associations or member-based organizations, they're looking for increased revenue, more membership, and increased value to their membership. So understanding the outcomes that they're trying to achieve, and then establishing targets and a roadmap. How are we going to do this? What's holding you up? Who are the stakeholders? And at each decision point along the way, consideration of different options. Now, for my clients, this is something I'll talk about, but not necessarily burden them with it. It's about understanding what can or may happen so that we can pivot accordingly. And when you forecast these things, that's when you don't lose momentum. It's about being able to manage those risks, being aware of them, to be able to just continue. Okay, this happens, so we're going to do this. You know, my toddler threw up on my sweater. I'm going to change it. No problem. So it's creating that ease. And the best, I take it as a compliment. Every conversation I have, always I hear, I never thought about that. And it's the ability to just think through that entire suite of issues and considerations to be able to lay out that path and improve the leadership practices within the organization, which is the next piece, because nothing can be done alone. It's always done with others. There's that saying of, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. How do you do that? Understanding the needs of the people in the organization. They want to feel safe. They want to feel heard. They want to contribute. They want to feel important. They want to wake up in the day and have a drive to contribute. So internally, it's creating the mechanisms, which is really being transparent. We're doing this. This is what's happening. I want your feedback. So I always encourage communication to go up, down, left, right. Share it with everybody. Informal mechanisms for feedback. Don't make it complicated. The more complicated it is, the more resistance you'll face. So those are my principles.
Gotcha. So maybe kind of misunderstood. So you also just coach the medium-sized businesses, but what is the I guess the thing you coach the businesses about, talking to the government, putting their concerns? What is that portion look like, I guess?
It's lining it up with the greater initiatives.
Okay.
So if it is, say, new policy, new platform, new government, we're talking about going to impact you. How do you communicate, and through what body? Through associations and unions. What are the regulatory restrictions that your industry is going to face? How is this going to impact you? Is it realistic? Being able to be that voice, or help them be the voice, and this is how it's going to contribute or work against economic growth and prosperity. And understanding those challenges, because people just operate in a vacuum. When they can have a stronger voice, they can band with others to do, but understanding the regulatory procedures and process, what body you should deal with, what considerations you need to make, looking at the long-term political and economic decisions to align with them, or at least manage them. But in communicating with them and getting approvals, getting grants, being able to feed into any legislative proposals, it's really being able to, again, identify those risks, how it's going to impact them, and how to prepare for it or how to communicate back. So it's, okay, we'll go with that, or no, we need to voice, or this is what we need to do. For example, a fintech startup
Mhm.
that needs to commercialize, understanding the processes, the regulatory bodies, the due diligence they need to provide, and whether they can do it in-house or need outside help, but outlining the requirements, because it's nebulous. It's really nebulous. And it's at the municipal, state, provincial, or federal level. Who do you need to connect with? Whose purview or oversight is does it fall under?
Mm. Got you. So yeah, so you help, one, obviously one part of it is essentially you help the businesses organize better, kind of look at their numbers and all that stuff, communicate better. The other part is them also communicating and also understanding the laws and rules and regulations. And perhaps, maybe one part I'm missing, I don't know if you mentioned this, but also be able to lobby the government about
Yes.
their concerns better? Is that one of the things you do?
Yes, very much so. And I've actually created something called the Counter Lobbyist,
Mhm.
which is a AI solution based on a CRM
Mm,
that, in short, every organization or association has segmented
mm,
markets under them, different size companies, different differentiation within the industry. They all have different needs. So,
mm,
first thing is helping them get the buy in and value creation for those segments,
mm,
then to validate the needs, then to improve communication with them, and then to align them in the messaging to officials, to regulatory bodies,
mm,
and being able to lobby in a way that's more organic
mm.
as opposed to the high paid corporate, multinational supported lobbyists that go to Washington or Ottawa. It's a way for the smaller players to have a voice.
Mm,
And for the individuals, it's being able to know who to message
mm,
and how to do it. It's at the, again, municipal, state, or federal level, and how to engage the right representative to have a voice, because you have to be seen and be heard. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you're just dealing with those repercussions, you have to be part of the solution, not otherwise you're part of the problem.
got you. All right. So let's, kind of, I want to make sure I get this message out there, right? One is, okay, if one, I understand, which I'll tell you. So one is, hey, if you are a small business owner and medium-sized business owner, and you're confused by all these rules and regulations and all that stuff, obviously Hinesh is one of the persons you should talk to
Mhm.
understand how to navigate that. The other part on the coaching program, what would you suggest to who should be the type of people who should be reaching out as far as their business coaching program? What is the
For the business coaching, it's anybody who feels stuck, anyone who knows that they can do better, anyone who wants more and wants to short circuit the process
Mhm.
to be able to get the results faster. And I assist them in all areas, from public speaking, how to get those engagements, how to structure the talk, how to lead their organization, personal development, the foundations to have, winning your day, how to do that, and accountability. I think the biggest piece is accountability, having somebody to validate thoughts, decisions with, and somebody to keep you on track. So on a weekly call, was this done? You need to consider this. I step back, I do a lot of analysis and research to bring back to say, okay, this is what I found. Let's consider this and build this into your business plan, strategic planning, or even in your day-to-day life of, okay, you're short on time. Let's go over what you're doing on a day-to-day basis at work, at home, with your kids, with your partner, and come up with solutions just to simplify life. Because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of pressure, and it's hard to succeed when you're doing it alone. So having somebody that's got your back, that's supported others, understands what to do, and can give you the shortcuts so you're not wasting time making mistakes and not generating that revenue, getting it done in short order.
Mhm. Gotcha. All right. So as you heard him, so in those two cases, right? One is, hey, your business, you're struggling and you don't know where to go next and all that stuff, and maybe you need to organize better. Reach out to Hinesh. But also the other factor is, hey, you're a small business to mid-sized business. You don't have access to this big lobbyists. Then maybe Hinesh is someone you should talk to figure out these regulation rules, or maybe how to advocate for yourself, how to approach the right people, all that stuff. So Hinesh can help. So Hinesh, let's get into our
Right.
personal.
Can I just, sorry, Roger, I just want to add one thing. It's
Sure.
not just who to talk to, it's also the key messaging. It's the language to open up listening and get results. And it's not just, this is a problem, can you do this? It's being able to phrase it in a way that aligns with what motivates that politician or, and sorry, how it aligns with the greater picture so that it's easier for them. You have to give people
Hmm.
things on a silver platter. The easier it is for them to just copy paste and send that on, and for it to have meaning and to just not justify but support them in any way. It's an art.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's an excellent point. Yeah, the words that you use are 100% very important, more than what do you say? Yeah, basically, yeah, that gets the attention of the person if you use the right words. Awesome. All right, let's get into the personal stuff. Let's get into this whole divorce coaching, divorce dad coaching. I don't know how much you want to share. Let's start with your personal journey and what got you to realize, like, hey, people, divorced dad, need help.
I, you know, I was told my marriage was over. It wasn't something I was expecting or wanting.
Mhm.
And it took me a long time to accept, from seeing my kids for half their lives to dealing with losing your partner, your wealth, to not being able to share workload in a house while having a very demanding career. And how do you balance it all?
Mhm.
And because I'm very analytical and methodical, as I started putting things into place to make my life easier, there were just clear best practices and lessons learned I could share, especially when friends were coming to seek advice as it was happening to them and then referring their friends to me for advice. But the hardest part was the mental piece. It took me a significant amount of time to get over it, to accept it, to manage my internal state and emotions that led to physical illness.
Mhm.
And what I prioritized was were my kids and knowing the results I wanted. So how I managed conflict, how I wouldn't poke the bear, I just sucked it up because for the long run, for what was best for me and my kids was that their mom and I had a healthy relationship,
Mhm.
and to always keep that at the forefront and not get lost in the resentment or see it as a zero sum game. There's no winning or lose. The win is that you both co-parent and you can communicate about your kids, and each parent knows what's going and being positive. It's, I hate the saying everything happens for a reason, but when you look back at it and the growth I had to go through to overcome it was really meaningful, and it's made me a better person. And I really don't know what other stimulus would have forced me to go through the growth, but the pain, again, it's short circuiting that pain for others, whether it's businesses or parents. You don't have to suffer. You
Mhm.
don't have to be in that state of confusion or lack of,
Mhm.
you're lost. It throws your whole world apart. And then you're just moving from work to get the kids, to feed them, to do their homework, to get them to bed, to set up for the next day. And then you're still dealing with the emotional stuff of how do you deal with the other parent? How do you deal with the conflict? How do you deal with their new partner? How do you deal with them having another child with a new person, that all coming into your children's life? And it's not easy.
Mm.
And when you read about the pain of others and how they just it's prolonged. I'm part of so many dad groups on Facebook, and there's a lot of victimhood. There's a lot of just pain where guys are just continuing to suffer and
Mm.
not helping themselves by focusing on their kids and working to create that healthy co-parenting strategy, or just it's a business after it's business decisions with your kids. And that's the way you have to look at it. But ultimately for me, it was the pain of all of it, the acknowledgement, the acceptance, the change and dealing with the change, and just how to make everything simpler: budgeting, meal planning, home life, better engagement with your kids, better engagement with their mom. So all these different pieces of pulling together in a very simple way. And the course I created, the Decent Divorced Dad, covers all this,
Mm.
including because I took all the principles from the five main religions: Stoicism, positive intelligence, cognitive behavioral therapy, and performance psychology, because the principles are the same. And I built the course on that and included the meal planning, budgeting, and even laundry symbols. It's demystifying everything to simplify people's lives, because it just doesn't have to be hard.
Mm. Gotcha. No, that's you made a great point about everything happens for a reason, or sometimes things happen and that teaches you or changes you a lot. And I experienced that. I wouldn't be where I am without my own essentially divorce and other stuff I went through that forced me to look at myself instead of looking at others. And I mean, yeah, I've actually talked to people. There's someone I'm talking to, a friend I'm coaching, and she is going through a personal dramatic change because of something she had to confront. Because there's a saying, right? We are only humans only change by either a force, or either the circumstances will force you to change, or maybe there'll be some inward looking, but 99% it's something force you to change, right? So that's a great point.
And you said it really well. It's looking inward. That's the first place you have to start. You have to get to that point where you are objective about everything in your life and look inward, because that's the only place you have control and the ability to create change. And from there, the ripple effects begin. You can't expect others to. You can't criticize them. You can't point fingers. It's you. It starts with you and only you.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much the bottom line. Whether I mean personal life or the business life, it doesn't matter. It eventually comes down to us. As the I like to quote this guy, Peter Crone is a guy where one of the two things he says, right? One is wherever you go, there you are. So it doesn't matter where you go, you are there. When you're experiencing something, you are the person experiencing. So that's something you got to look at. The other one is life presents you with situations to show you where you're not free. And that always I constantly keep in mind. So anyway, so going back to your divorce, that coaching, right? Now, normally you just give them the course, you have this online course, they can go do it, or do you mostly, is it more personal or more of a group
It
coaching?
is. It. I was doing more one-on-one
Mhm.
sessions or having client interfacing like that, but now it's sold online, and I run it in cohorts. It's an 8-week course. Next one starting in early January, and I'm revamping a few things. So if people go to my website, decentdivorcedads.com, they should reach out to me, and because I want to develop a community where like-minded parents have each other, and there's weekly group coaching calls, and one person has a question, other people have questions, or they just haven't thought about it. And what I was doing before was running it through a Facebook group and having my weekly calls there, but the participation rate was low because people aren't investing in it. You pay attention to what you pay for, so that's how it's done. And extra help is always available. I will never ever turn down anybody that is seeking help.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, there's a good point you made there. When you give it for free, people don't really care. When they pay for it, that's when they start caring a little bit
Yeah,
more. Not always the
they,
case, but yeah, a little bit more.
then they attend, they do the coursework because it's not much. It's 15 minutes a day. I've structured it to incrementally add things where there's three modules. The first is really about accepting your behavior and stopping the self-destructive behavior. Second is establishing that healthy baseline and include some mindfulness practice, just the principles of good nutrition, sleep, movement, time in nature, mindfulness, and creation. From my own experience of being off work for 14 months with suite of issues, and what was required for me to come back up and stacking that. And when you build that as the fundamentals of your day-to-day life, you're unstoppable. And then the third module is about where do you want to go? How are you going to lead yourself and others on your new mission and being able to just prosper and set up the metrics, the targets, goal setting, visualization, sharing it, and how to be there for your kids. And it's all about the kids. And it's Oprah said this, everybody wants to feel seen, heard, and understood, and that what they say matters. And taking a bit of time to do that with your kids and teaching people, all age kids, don't just ask them how their day was, ask them specifics. What was the best part of lunch today? And something I do at the end of the day with my kids is ask them 3 questions, and 4 now that they're teenagers, after I, again, always assessing, always trying to find solutions, is what was the best part of your day? What's something you did today that you're proud of? What's something that you're grateful for? And then after challenges with teenagers, I realized I needed to add a question to get their feedback in a safe way, which was, what can I do differently as a parent? So we do this collectively every evening, or sometimes they ask to do it one-on-one because they want to share different things. But it's just a beautiful way to connect every day if we haven't had a chance in another way. So very tangible ways to connect with your kids.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's a great way to do it. I haven't had the, every day, but we had deep conversations. But yeah, that seems like a way more structured and simple way to do it. That's a great tip. That's a great share. All right, awesome. Let's get into the last 3 questions. What's the one book? I mean, obviously you're into personal development, you read books and you coach people about that. What's the best book for you in that, I guess, genre? What's the, your favorite book, I guess?
That's a big question because there's so many. One, in business, I feel everything comes down to the principles written in Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence Others, as well as Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Everything comes from that. So I think that's valuable, but something that I really enjoyed was Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman.
Yes.
Because it
System 1,
opens your
System 2.
eyes up to, sorry, what was that?
System 1, System 2. Yes.
Yes. And the biases we have.
Yep.
When you were unaware of it, the more aware you become of your biases and that of the manipulation of media communication, the more effectively you're able to discern reality. Your reality, where you are not judgmental, you're not judging, you're more objective, and you're living the loving pursuit of the relevant truth. And every conversation I have with myself or others is, what's really the issue here? What's holding you back? What you're saying is not really what is productive. And so that book was just really powerful and highlighting things that I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I work hard to be objective and to see the truth, but you just don't know. So excellent, excellent book.
Yep. No, I definitely agree. One of the most excellent books as far as understanding the biases we all have built in, whether we are aware or not. But even if we are aware, it will happen because I noticed that myself. Anyway.
Yes. And if I reread it again, I'm sure it would tell me, I'm like, oh, I'm still, it's, our minds are funny. And instinctively, that's our role, is to perceive everything as a threat. That's how we survived on the savannah. That's why generations after generations, kids of parents, their kids survived because they were able to perceive and deal with threats and move on. So
Exactly.
being more understanding and discerning of that.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, I mean, if you're a marketing person, you'll probably be better marketer. If you're a salesperson, you'll be salesperson. If you put it the right way, we can't help but react that way. So anyway, all right, we can go to a
We
whole.
could talk for hours, I think, on that and many other things.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Another question is, what inspires you to get up and do what you do every day? You got two different businesses, obviously, a lot of things going on. But what's the main inspiration for you to get
And
up
it's the same. It's to improve outcomes for our kids. Really, at the end of the day, it's all about what are we building? What's the world we're leaving behind for our kids? And how do we improve that? And it's not just for the setting, empowering kids, it's the system around them. It's the parents, empowering the parents with the right tools. It's creating and supporting the institutions that create our communities. It's being able to influence government to make the right decisions to support long-term socioeconomic benefit and to increase economic growth so that we're a viable society that is not relying on anything that's manipulative in our financial system. And I'm fearful of the impact in the next few years because I'm always forecasting of where is our world going and what paths are they, which is why I jumped into what I'm doing. Is there's a few things what I listed about where I feel our governments are failing us and we're not making evidence-based decisions, but there's also the debt financing is only Keynesian economics, 100 years old. We're living in a world that we haven't seen the long-term outcomes and secondary, tertiary impacts of how we live financially. Wealth divergence is accelerating. That is a massive bellwether for anybody. And so for me to hop on that upward curve in that divergence, to be able to set myself and my kids up and help others do the same. So when I look at our future and the risk of AI, the World Bank or the UN announced that 50% of jobs will be redundant within a couple of years. That's frightening. So does that look at a universal basic income? Does that look at ownership of the government? How do we create that independence to have more free thought, to have options, choices, and financial freedom sets that base up for everybody. So that's what drives me is taking these holistic tools, the partners I've brought together to support the stakeholders, the clients, the families, the kids to prosper, affordable housing supply, better, more powerful, sustainable small, medium industries or businesses, better communities, associations that represent these people, these bodies, these organizations to have a voice that's relevant. And that's what drives me is no one else is really looking at this with this lens. It's more for financial gain and control. So being able to bring together those people and create those changes.
Awesome. Well, with that, the final question, the best tip that has helped you and can help others. The number one tip, obviously, since you read a lot of books, you got a lot of probably tips, but yeah, we got to go with one tip.
Right? And the self reflection out of everything is whether it's going on that trip, whether it's making that meal, whether it is starting that business, whether it is improving something, is just do it. It's earlier messages to clients is build the plane as it's taking off. Build it. Just do it. whatever you're doing, you think you've got it right, the market's going to dictate it. So just get out there, launch, do it, and done beats perfect. Set a date, get it done, push it out.
Awesome.
And
Great.
an example of that is I'm wrapping up a book I'm writing. And I was up till 4:30 editing what should be almost the final draft. And it was just accepting, I want to add more. I want to do this. And I was like, no, this is the starting point. Just get it done, because I have perfectionist tendencies. So this has been in my entrepreneurial journey a big lesson for myself, and resistance I hear in everybody is just get it done. Let's set a date, main outcomes, go, and reiterate.
Awesome. Great tip. Definitely a great tip. All right. So I'll be posting all the links and information. Obviously, he has two different, coaching programs. So I'll get all those links and post it out. So reach out to Hinesh and whatever kind of realm you're trying to get help for or want to have a conversation with him. So reach out to him. I'll be posting with the clips on the LinkedIn and obviously YouTube or wherever you see it. So reach out to him. Hinesh, thanks for taking the time, man. Excellent, excellent information. And, again, thanks for the time, man.
My pleasure. But before we stop, I want to ask you, what's that one tip that you provide? Because your experience is very broad. You've done a lot, you do a lot. I would love to hear that from you. I'm sure your audience would as well if you haven't shared this.
Oh, one tip. I mean, I say everything starts with you. Relentless. So there is no destination. One thing I've learned is something I recently learned is, I'll say it in Hindi, more karma yogi, which is basically action, be union with your action, do actions without, I guess, the goal in mind. That's what I'm learning. That's what that's the tip I learned recently. That's what I'm trying to integrate, because the default is always looking at the result versus just doing the action and letting the action get you the results, whatever it might be.
Yes, that's really meaningful and reminds me of a year ago. My son's friend was over, and I've known him since he was 4, and we've got a really great relationship. He's asking me, he's like, what do you think the meaning of life is? And so I told him I forgot what my answer is, because my answer to that has shifted with his answer. He told me this: the meaning of life is enjoying the passage of time.
That's awesome.
What you just said, I just got chills thinking about that, because it's so powerful. Is that if you're striving, I will only be happy when this happens, you won't be happy. And the thought I had earlier this week as I was reassessing some priorities for 2025 was creating more carrots for myself as opposed to sticks to drive me. It should be reminding myself of I have the privilege to do what I'm doing and I enjoy it. And because we get caught up with our self-imposed deadlines and the pressure we put on ourselves. So thank you. That is I think that's cemented in my nervous system now. And I do want to ask another question, if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
There's so much wisdom coming. What you're sharing is powerful. Your book, what is your book that you want to recommend or that's hit you?
Okay, I got two, one A and one B. One is Conversations with God with Neil Donald Walsh. Amazing book. And Napoleon Hill's, the original before the Think and Grow Rich, The Law of Success, because it's much less watered down version. It's where's this balloons coming from? I don't know where the balloons came from. I guess, but anyway, that one, Law of Success, highly, highly recommend, because it's a bit more in depth and way more. I would say Think and Grow Rich was good, but yeah, The Law of Success, 1925 edition, by the way. Highly recommend that one. It's hard to find, but 28, there's a 28 version that's not the right one. So that one and Conversations with God, I would say, yeah.
Thank you.
So
okay, I'm really glad I asked, and I think your audience will be, grateful for that too. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. I didn't know you were going to flip the switch on me. All right, all right. Please. Okay. I'll thanks again. Let me kind of stop it here, and we'll
Thank
probably
you.
have another conversation maybe and then we have another talk
Like that.
another time.